Hello, this is the first episode of a series in practicing flowcharts. I'm making this for some of my friends at ISOP, and it's not gonna be fun for some of you. I am using the PDF provided by our teacher on Google Classroom, and let's start. I'll go through all of these in separate videos, which will all be posted today, I hope. So let's start with the first one, which is to count how many elements are positive, negative, zero, odd, and etc. Just generally counting what based on the elements on just counting elements based on a condition in a 1D array. So what a 1D array is really just a small set of numbers, as you can see. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, kind of. And this is an array of, and you also have to remember always that arrays are counted in such a way. 3, even though it's like an, which is the default, and the n is 4. So the n is the amount of elements in an array, while the maximum actual number, like index of this array is 3. So it's always n minus 1. So last index is equal to n minus 1. Remember that. Some people forget this, and that makes their flowcharts not work. So let's actually start the first one after the introduction. So of course, let's write the task down. Alright, so I'm just moving the light a bit so you see a bit better. Now, we of course start this flowchart in the easiest way possible, and this is by just writing down start and circling it. Of course, I'm using the notation we've been taught. We go an arrow to whatever side. You can go down or to the side, but I always do it to the side. And we first need to input our array. So by looking at how our array looks like, we know that an array is like a variable, but has these square brackets and has another variable in there, which is the length. So before we can even create our array, we do know its length, and we provide that. So we input by doing something like this, like a parallelogram, sorry, and we write n in there. After that, you can write another one where we input a0 all the way to a n minus 1. Sorry for writing it a bit unclearly. We make it an arrow, and now, because this is we're going to have to check every number. So what we do is we have a condition that is going to create our loop. And as for standard, we use I as Oh, my bad. Of course, you have to add I before the condition as a variable. We start at 0. In this scenario, as we want to check all digits, and I is smaller than n. Now we use I is smaller than n because this will allow us to check every element in the array, meaning that every time after we do our operations we can add 1 to I, and then in that case when we theoretically have finished all our operations, I will be equal to n, and so then it will stop the flowchart or the algorithm. In this case, we are counting, so we can already write down that we will be outputting C, for example. A variable C I chose because it's the first letter of count. Now we can put in a stop sign, and that's good. Now we have to do the loop, which is, I guess, for most people, the most difficult part, but bear with me. So here, oh shit, my bad. Oh damn, my bad. We actually have to keep the counter, so we put C here as also 0, as there might not be any positive numbers, so our counter might be 0. So what we do here is we put in another checkbox, and here we check if AI is bigger, oh my bad, bloody hell, is bigger than 0. This is a check if a digit in an array is bigger than 0, and we use I in this place, not 0 or like n, because I is our incremental, so we want to change which number we are comparing to every time we want to add 1 to our counter. So when we do here false, we add in the condition, the operation of I++, which is the same as I equals I plus 1. Just write it down here. It is the same as the operation I equals I plus 1. Now after this operation, we will simply return to our original check. However, if I is true, what we do is we increment C. And in a funny joke, I can say that this is like the language C++. Ha ha ha. Okay. Okay, that was horrible. If we want to change, so in the PDF file, it mentions negative, 0 or odd, or even numbers, and we check for these numbers by changing this condition. So let me just move the camera, and for negative numbers we would change the condition to AI is smaller than 0, and this is for counting negative numbers. Now if we want to count zeros, we simply do AI is 0. And if we want to count odds, this is where we're going to have to add in a different operation that most people are not used to. And this operation is called modulo, or rather the sign is called modulo. And you do AI %, which is the sign by which you want to divide. And now modulo is essentially your operation that checks if something is divisible by a certain number you give it. So for example, in here, this is very easy to change, because now if it's false, then that's for counting odds. This is where you add the C++. Or if it's true, it's for counting even numbers. Or if you want a specific amount, you can just change this 0 into X, for example, or something else that you input before you input at some point before the loop. Moving on, I hope that's clear.